Morning, all. Larry Beal. A little chilly in the shop this morning. It's around 65 degrees. I got the oil drained last night. I left the drain plugs out, the oil filter off, and the dipstick pole just to make sure any gas evaporates. Still waiting on parts to come in, but we're going to pull the fuel pump today in this check valve, and there's a procedure where you blow and suck through it, and so we're going to check that. I'm starting to lean towards it might be a check valve or that canister over there. All right, so I want to be real specific on how much oil I put into this thing. So the owner's manual calls for when the filter is removed, which I just put a new filter on it, 1.3 liters. So we're going to add 500, 500, and then 300. So I'm going to do an exact measurement, and we're going to put the exact amount in there, because that way I can follow it on the dipstick to see if we're leaking gas. I don't know if you can tell, but that is dead on the full mark. Yep, I think we're good to go now. Once I get the oil in, I'm going to throw this. This is a vacuum gauge. Let me put you up here and show you how it works. So basically, we hook this up to the carburetor, and it's got a pump on this side. So what you can do, and I'm putting my finger over the end now, is we pump it up, and right about there, and then we're going to just let it set. And if it bleeds down, that means that we have a leak. Okay, so we're going to try this guy out. What I meant to say is, as far as the leak goes, it would be the needle valve on the float in the carb. That's what this will test. Okay, so this is the fuel line going to the carburetor, and there's still fuel in it. You can see it's right there. So it hasn't leaked down, but again, there's no pressure on it. So yeah, I want to check a few other things because if I put pressure on that line, it does leak. I should have done that before I put fresh oil in there. Okay, so I decided to check this check valve, and I can blow through it easily this way, and this way we're restricted. If I blow hard enough, though, it does bypass. So we can use this to check and see. Okay, it starts bypassing. Yeah, see, what is that, PSI? Yeah, the 0. So about 1.5 PSI, but it's holding. We bleed it off. Bypasses at 1, but it's holding that way. Okay, we turn it around. It just pumps straight through. So I think the check valve's good. Well, the plot thickens on this check valve. Nowhere online does they mention anything about that evap canister, and the only thing mentioned about it is in the manual that I have, and per this diagram, it does not show a check valve anywhere there. It shows that canister hooked straight to the fuel tank. So depending on how this is installed or why it was installed, it would allow that fuel tank to pressurize up to 1.5 psi. So my thought is we're not putting this back in for the initial run. So now to the fuel pump test. So basically, if I orientate this, and actually this is not like the picture. Let me look into this further. Okay, so I am guessing at some point in time, somebody has jacked around with the fuel system over there. Check valve, I can't find anything informational wise about it. We're not going to put that back on. The manual, the carb, or the fuel pump is not the same. I mean, the mounting tabs look the same, but the outlet valve, which is labeled A on this carb, is actually pointing horizontal. So we have little arrows. This arrow is pointing in, so this would be an inlet valve. It's got a little arrow here pointing out, so that'd be outlet. And this one's labeled P, and that would be for the pulse. So this would be A in the instructions, and this would be B. This would be the outlet. So it says blow air into the outlet fitting and make sure it does not flow in the inlet B. So yeah, nothing blows there. But this is where I'm confused. It now says inhale air to the inlet fitting A. So inlet. So that's the inlet. So it says inhale air and make sure it does not inhale from the B side, which it does not. So that tells me this fuel pump, per the instructions, is good. I will wait for the new pump. It'll be here tomorrow, and make sure I get the same, because what was throwing me off was the way this was set up. But I think I got it figured out. But we're going to wait on new parts. And next I'm going to pressure test the fuel bowl in the carb. Okay, so I hooked the little pressure gauge up to the carburetor, and we are at about 5 psi, which is probably more than. So I guess the object here is to let this set and see if it bleeds down any. But right now it looks like it's not moving. But I'm going to let it set for 15 minutes, let's say, and see what happens. All right, I'm going to stop this test at about 2 minutes. It has dropped down a little bit. We'll wait for the new carburetor to come in so I can do this same test on it just to see what's going on. Let's take the pressure off of it. But yeah, it's been about 2 minutes and it dropped maybe 1 tick mark. Okay, so there's a little drain nipple here and a screw, and it looks like it's got some dirt in it. I'm gonna go ahead and flush that out. I've got a clean bowl here, hopefully to catch what comes out of there, if anything. But yeah, let me see if we can open that up. All right, guys, I removed the tester from the top of the fuel line. I've removed the little valve. I stuck a little screwdriver up in that hole, and nothing has come out. So there's whatever was in the bowl has either went back into the engine block, or I don't know. So yeah, that's a little aggravating. Let me get this screw back in there. And while I was putting that screw back in up there, it decided to dump fuel out. I think I caught most of it, so I can take a look at it. So yeah, that some reason it opened up. So yeah, there was fuel in the bowl. So let's take a look what came out of that fuel bowl. Does not look great. This was clean. Looks like there might be a little water in it. It's not the right color, that's for sure. I see some little bubbles over there. It's probably some water. But yeah, it doesn't look great. I may, since there's no gas in the bowl now, I may run that test again. Well, as I suspected, by draining the gas out of the bowl, the float's now down, which means the float valve is open, so it will not pressurize. It's just free flowing past the float valve now. So guys, instead of installing this check valve on this port, what's your all thoughts of me just putting a fuel filter on there for a vent and just route a hose so it's pointed up under the seat? That way the tank can vent, instead of putting a check valve on there allowing it to build pressure. Just a thought. Either that, or I'm going to think about bypassing that whole canister setup. Shouldn't be too hard. Okay, so to recap what I think I found, hopefully to make this video shorter, is the pulse pump is good to go. My concerns there was the diaphragm may have been leaking and letting gas come down through the pulse tube into the engine crankcase. The vacuum valve has not moved on that. The reading on the carb, when I first checked it, 2 minutes, we lost about 1 tick mark on the gauge, which tells me that there was some leakage past the fuel ball valve. So got a new carb on order, and we'll throw that on and see if it fixes it. But I think a combination of this bypass valve was causing pressure in the tank, which then was pushing fuel past the needle seat valve and the carburetor. It was not going through the fuel pump. Even though I got a new one on order, that's fine. This fits my other Craftsman GT, same kind of pump. So I'll have a spare pump. And when I get the carb, we'll get that put on, get everything hooked back up, and see what happens. Thanks for watching.